Hi guys, today we're looking at a Nikkormat EL. This cost me $76.50. On eBay they're worth about the same price with an f2 lens. This particular one is in very good condition. I thought I found it at a bargain price, but you could argue that 75 isn't really a bargain. However, these f2 lenses, the HCs, they're coated lenses, and it's a very good lens. Typically they go from anywhere from $30 to $70 for the lens, and the bodies are fairly inexpensive on eBay. The historical significance of this camera is they were made from 1972 to 1976. The Nikkor HC lens on this one, the 50mm, was made from 1972 to 74. This was the first Nikon that offered automatic aperture priority exposure control. They were available in 3 colors: chrome, black, and black with chrome trim. They have shutter speeds from 4 seconds to 1/1000th of a second, plus bulb and auto. It has a vertical travel metal focal plane shutter. It has a coupled CDS, cadmium sulfide metering system with a matched needle system. It has a hot shoe, and it takes one 6-volt PX28 or 4 SR44 battery, and the batteries are in the bottom of the mirror box. It has, if you don't have a battery in it, or your battery fails, it can still take pictures at 1/90th of a second. We'll look at the front of the camera. This button is the depth of field preview button. And right now I'll set it to f16 so you can see if the camera picks up the lens closing to f16. This is the self-timer. I won't actuate that because using the self-timer on old cameras can usually get you in trouble because the mechanisms can get dirty over the years. This is the aperture ring from f16 to f2 in the case of this lens. Of course, it would vary from lens to lens. It's an interchangeable lens. This little lever on the side is actually a lever, even though it looks like a button, and that's to lock up the mirror. And then this button is the lens release lever. And replacing the lenses on Nikkormats and the older Nikon Fs is a little tricky and kind of interesting if you've never seen it done before. So let me take the lens off. And all Nikons, all old Nikons anyhow, remove in the opposite direction of real cameras. They turn clockwise to release and counterclockwise to fasten them. So you'll notice while I have the lens off that underneath, and you'd never know it if you look all over this camera to find where you put the battery in. The battery is hidden inside the film chamber here. It's underneath the mirror. So if you lock up the mirror with this lever and then reach inside and push this little lever to the side, it pops up, and down in there is the battery. And this one has a working battery in it. So I'll just flap that little lever back down and put the mirror back where it belongs. Now to put the lens on all of these old Nikon cameras with the brackets on them, you should first set the lens aperture to f5.6, then the dot for the aperture setting, and the shoe and the prong, which should always be pushed all the way to the right clockwise, should all line up with that dot there and the prong. It should fit right in, and then you turn it hard until it snaps. Now at that point your lens is mounted, but the metering system does not know that this is an f2 lens, and if you took pictures with it now, they would be incorrectly exposed using the built-in needle matching system. And that's because the needle matching system has to know the maximum aperture of the lens because it takes the meter readings with the lens wide open, which is what it is now. If you do a depth of field preview, you see the lens stop down. That would be the metering that should occur, but it has to compensate for that by knowing that when it's wide open, it's really at f2. And the way it knows that is after you physically mount the lens, you have to turn the aperture ring all the way to f2 and all the way to f16. And when you go to the f16 direction, you can feel and hear an extra force when you turn that wheel. After you've done it once, you won't feel that extra force. And the result of that is visible on the bottom of the lens, or on the side of the lens in this case. And if you see this little indicator wheel here, and there's a red dot that shows that this figured out that this is an f2 lens. It shows the setting there. If it was a 1.4 or a 1.2 lens, it would have the dot in a different place. So there's a little trick to mounting all of these old lenses. Basically, you just mount them and then you ratchet the aperture both directions, clockwise and counterclockwise, to the limit, and then you synchronize the CDS metering system to the aperture of that particular lens. On the camera top, unlike some of the other Nikormats, it's a little different. This is the rewind knob, and on the outside of the rewind knob, you can see the ASA settings. The way you change the ASA settings is you have to press this little chrome button in and then try and twist the ASA. Right now it's set at 400. If I push that in, I can release it and set it to, in this case, ASA 100. And if I'll put it back to 400. Once you've got it there, it stays, and you can't turn the knob anymore unless you press that little release button. This, of course, is a little flip-up winder for rewinding your film. And this little lever, and you can't tell it's a lever, but there's a little black lever on the left. That's how you release the back, and it's a two-step procedure. You push the lever back, and then you pull the rewind knob up, and it snaps the back open. Now, if you don't press the lever, you can't pull the rewind lever up. Over on the right side, well, we have a hot shoe for Nikon flashes, and that's the film plane indicator, the film plane index. This is, of course, the shutter speed dial, which has three different functions really. Right now it's in automatic mode, and to get it out of auto, you have to depress this little button in the center. Once you depress that and turn it, then you can select all of the shutter speeds from thousandths. The X-Sync speed is 1/125th. We can go all the way down to a 4-second exposure. Here's a 4-second exposure. If we turn it all the way to bulb, it does the bulb setting. You can't go further counterclockwise, so I'll put it back to a thousandth of a second. Now, if you wanted to change the sync ports, which are over here on the side, from X sync to flashbulb sync, that's what this little lightning indicator means. And to change that, you have to lift up this ring and then turn it. And if you turn it far enough, there it shows a little bulb. So now it's in the bulb setting, or in other words, flash bulbs. And if I want to go back to X sync, you turn it that way, lifting up on the ring and turning it, and I got it back to X sync. And when I did that, I accidentally turned the knob to auto, which is okay. I'll just flip it that way to get it out. This, of course, is the shutter release button. There's the film counter, and it's automatically set to a start position when you open and close the back, and then it takes a few cranks to get it to the #1 picture. The film wind knob, when you pull it out, and you see the red dot, that's when it's turning on the battery. So normally you would take pictures like this, leaving it on. Now we're at a thousandth of a second. And if you push the lever back, you've turned off the battery, so you'll have a little battery savings there. On the back, we have the viewfinder, and this accepts diopter rings, which would thread onto this little round thing here. It's internally threaded, and it also takes an optional rubber eye cup. Inside the viewfinder, there are two needles that you would match: a green needle, which indicates the shutter speed, and a black needle, which tracks the aperture that would be changing as you crank the aperture ring on the lens itself. If you're in auto mode, it's a little different. When you're in automatic mode, then the black needle, which normally shows the aperture, would start showing the actual shutter speed that the computer inside has selected. Here's a battery test button and the indicator light for the battery test. So when you press it, it lights up bright orange like that, showing you that your battery is installed and it's operating correctly. And I'll open the back so you can see in there. And there we can see our metal focal plane shutter. Pretty simple back, nice and easy to load. Nothing unusual. On the bottom, there's not much to see. You have the tripod socket and the release button to rewind the film into the film canister after you've taken your full roll of film. It's a beautiful little camera. This is, of course, the black version. And they're very reliable. That's about it, guys. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Here is a shameless plug for my new book called Nav Deck. It's about the Navy, NAV, and it's about DEC, Digital Equipment Corporation. Here's a picture of the front cover of the book. The airplane in the top was an A3D Sky Warrior, which I worked on for several years, and the airplane in the middle is a A6 Intruder, which I worked on for a few years. At the bottom is a logo for Digital Equipment Corporation. We were very proud of this logo. It took various forms over the years. Here's a picture of the back cover. At the top is my picture at age 17 and 65. The diagram in the upper right is a bombing problem that we studied in Navy training for about 2 weeks. To the left of that is the mechanical analog computer that we fixed that controlled the bombing system on A3D Sky Warriors. Below that are 3 different pictures of Digital Equipment Corporation computers that I worked on over the years. Here is a copy of the description of the book on Amazon. Here are the first reviews I received on the book.
It's available for $4 as an ebook every place that sells ebooks. Amazon's Kindle store, Apple's iBook store, Barnes & Noble Nook Bookstore, and the Kobo Bookstore. It's also available as a paperback from Lulu.com. The black and white copy is $15. The color version is $20. It's 364 pages long with 198 images and 83,000 words.